Welcome to my lovely IHP community and the 5D Collective. To those who are using inner growth mindset, mindfulness, and mindset practices and skills to anchor in more of your ventral vagal, that ventral energy that is in your day-to-day life and relationships thanks to living restorative embodiment, but that, as we discussed in being yourself mindfully spiritually, not all people will actively enjoy. So the Deb Dana expert that I'm quoting right now, as she says, some people will, with positive emotions, be dysregulated, meaning that they will have a dysregulating effect because they're comfortable in protection and not connection. And so when you have a Cusco attitude around you, you leave it alone, and that's because Pachas are hanging out with the healthy self-regulating adults who have a whole self, love to love and love to live and dance and not cast stones, and we love the flow state. And so we love using good stress. It's called use stress, and that's why we love mindfulness mindset practices, and we do emotions deeply. And that's also why we're empowered feminines and masculines who don't need each other to cater to our nervous system's needs, okay? So FYI, just remember, we did the episode before. If you didn't tune into that one, now I'm talking about something different that is also very important. I've noticed that people who don't know their whole self don't have good experiences with kundalini awakening, with the spiritual practices, with meditation, mindfulness, yoga. They don't have a good experience with anything that brings them into what Dr. Daniel Siegel in her personal neurobiology in my number of courses says, yeah, when you're in a mindfulness state, I know it like the back of my hand, with the inner growth mindset and mindsight. I've also known, I just didn't have a word for it, but Dr. Dan gave it to me. So I'm able to sift all through Maria's emotions, sensations, all this great stuff. Whole 3-year-old heart right here. She's not anywhere near broken. In fact, Dr. Dan is the one who shared with me, you were a differentiated self at your 3 years of age. Great. So my thoughts, my emotions, my mother didn't agree with them. Okay, whatever. I'm still here, and wholeness is what I kept. So when you say whole as your inner child, your imagination flies like an eagle. Yeah, and I have a twin. So remember, determined Robert Sapolsky, he says we have no free will because of what he knows about the brain and stuff like that. I know a lot about the brain too. And so again, I also know about Kundalini awakening. I've had two, and that's something that I don't share, and we will maybe talk about it in workshops or retreats, but not full details here. Definitely spiritual process. Well, I mean, I begin my journey with God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, Christian, Catholic, catechism. And then I told God, I said, I don't see Lucifer. The people in cloaks protect people who hurt physically children, and they protect them. I cannot stand behind anyone who's protecting on purpose human beings who have a law to respond to. No, there's a law, period. So nobody can make anybody believe in God. Faith is not imposed upon anyone. And I'm like, I don't think we're imposing you. Do we have to impose you? No. So this is the part of where they act like the medieval times. And I'm like, is it the medieval ages? I thought we were in the year 2025. So those of us who are of true spirituality with God, and then others come with different backgrounds, we bring it all together. The only ones who keep using Lucifer's name are the same ones who we're not going to be really engaging in relationship with, because again, they're not into connection. They're not into the ventral vagal energy or their whole self. They're into narratives and stories, and they have a pause self. I know everywhere they are. We're going to make fun of them later on. So in the meantime, what I'm trying to share here is that you will maximize Kundalini awakening, the spiritual practices, and you'll actually be the process of spirituality and not an ego, a bypasser, a pretend one. And that's just because they don't pretend. Again, everybody has their group, so we leave alone the people who are Peter Pans and Lost Boys. It's all insecure, attached. They don't have healthy self-regulation. They are the ones who, like the fancy lady, say, how dare they tell you to have no emotions, okay? So please remember, and if you didn't tune into that one, that's why I'm repeating it, so people don't stick around if they don't understand gooey is what you have in you. Means you know that if you got a person that might not decent enough, you don't be like, haha, you're an asshole. No. You play nice, as any inner child adult knows how to play, because they're not a big deal. They're no physical threat. So biologically, people are, like Stephen Porges points out, not aware that they are actively living out structural dissociation, and that they're using their trauma charges. I do know. So I'm sharing the wealth of information. It's also why when they have kundalini, they suffer. When they have spiritual stuff, they suffer. They always lose people. They stay small and isolated because they don't go heal with Patrick Tiahan. In fact, they don't open up their heart to spontaneity. They stay in a hypervigilant state. I need to read Patrick because he's awesome. He's so smart and he's made it clear you're not going to clear away your childhood trauma with any of that $1,200, $12,000, however much money you want to spend on anything that is with the spiritual community. So yes, the ones of us who are responsible because we care about the actual spirituality process of you can only live a life of meaning and connection beyond the solo self if you own your solo self, which you don't when you lose people on a spirituality awakening journey, which is indicative of us having a Peter Pan who then has lost boys following them and they all copy each other. And just think of Mean Girls, think of Pinocchio on the island, and think of teenagers who would basically just switch a group with their coward behaviors of, they promise, but then they betray each other, right? So betrayal, lying, it's all people who don't have a higher self because they don't have a whole self, because they don't have bilateral integration. So they're not living the entirety of their self yet, but they don't want to believe that there's a self. They also don't want to believe in a lot of other things like Stephen Porges and Deb Dana. So anyways, we're going to, again, leave it alone. So healed hypervigilance, as Patrick Dan shares, looks like open-hearted spontaneity. What you also know is that it means you got bilateral and vertical integrated brain and you know how to regulate in your ventral. So he ends with this: I became freer from controlling comfort, such as isolating, which kept my world sad and small, which is what those who say, you're spiritually awoken, you're special, you're going to lose all those people. Instead of actively knowing how to do what Terry Real talks about, you love yourself first by learning with Patrick Tiahan or Terry Real. So you be a badass functional adult at the very bare minimum. You become an inner child adult, and now you get to have a lot of fun. Manny, Diego, Sid, but we're all working together to continue with our ventral vagal energy shared, not with Diego's very unnecessary. We don't have Diego's family. So it's okay to be seen, to be you, and it's safe. And in fact, you only want to be the realness of you, not the fake protective self-pause. Instead, those people, they create groups and then they just, again, create their little silverback, the leader, and they all hang out like the Lost Boys in Peter Pan on an island. And they don't want anybody else to join because they're not sharing. And they all get rigid and chaotic. It's like, they're the bad ones. They all stay in those two sides. That's it. That's all they do their life. So we leave them alone. Again, we're going to know where to spot them. No, we're going to know where we hear them. Anyways, it would be nice for everybody to get their inner child healed. But again, I find it hard to believe the first season of life is what people tell you, as well as, no, neuroscientists and demons not existing. That's not true. I saw it with my own eyes. And yes, I know what you saw. That doesn't deny Patrick McNamara, decentralization of the self, or your brain receptor, the fear one, going wonky and your brain trying to heal. And you needing extra support, which is a person that is a great therapist like Patrick Tiahan, with child parts work, somatic, sensory motor, and your well-being, the mental kind, in the forefront, versus let me make you into a special mystic, which is what all those 4D ones are doing. They actively have a bunch of magical spells that they try to work with, and they're not magical, by the way, but they all get together. I've seen a number of groups, and they don't care to notice, maybe we should go and get our emotional, mental, and physical body online with Pat Ogden, so that we can then experience kundalini and spirituality in what your body can if it's grounded in your ventral vagal, because now you own a whole self, and what it is that you own integration. So bottom up is not destabilizing. As Peter Levine points out, it's when you can contain it and not in the threat response. It's not you actually containing it. You need to be able to use your prefrontal cortex. When you're in your threat response, what we got in front of us is a 3-year-old, which is an adaptive child, which in fact is rigid and chaotic, and you'll notice it because they like to bring you down their little trail with the little threat response that they will have engaged. And I, as an empowered feminine, will notice this, but I like to support my human herd. And also my mother taught me to be respectful while people are being disrespectful, and God taught me that too, because they have no integrity. Now, you don't become a coward or unkind or use manners that are of not integrity, because in front of you you have a broken-hearted person who disregards going to get therapy. You know what I mean? Like, that just sounds awful. So when you spell it down and spell it out to people in a way that they can understand, and when I see the groups that are talking shit about kundalini meditation yoga, I'm just like, you're uninformed. It's unimpressive once again. And some are just disrespectful to heritages, yoga, Reiki, and that's a whole bunch of other things. So I'm here for the 5D collective, as I keep sharing, because Christ consciousness, it means something to some of us. And I laugh when I see the 4D thinking they don't exist, because they really don't notice how much they sound like little teenagers in a room. So I understand that you have things to say about my content, but just so you know, all the hard work that goes behind what I do. And you know, all of it is meant to help you access your higher codes, which I can do. I see you own higher codes. Wow. You really aren't playing God, are you? Wow. Like, I seriously, anytime I'm seeing these individuals, I'm like, do you think you are bigger than the actual Akash, intelligence, God? You use whatever word you want. You are not bigger than. You are not disempowered. They're all disempowered feminines. And that's why they capture the unimpressive masculines, as the masculines let themselves get captured because they want to be in a small, isolated, controlling environment, and they're actively looking to be treated like little pieces of shit. I'm not even kidding, because that's exactly what a 0-1-year-old and a 3-7 who didn't get treated with the child-centric gloves that I got treated, and then I have a twin. Like I said, I'm using me as the example because you can tell they got a very, very nasty imagination, and they have very uninteresting ways to make jokes, and nobody who's a inner child adult will want to be around them, because our playground is fun. Meantime, we're also grown up and smart enough to want to hang out with smart entrepreneurs. So I'm personally not interested in the lack of intelligence people and consciousness. And now that I know, anytime I spot a non-bilaterally integrated brain, I'm just going to be like, okay. So you can maximize kundalini, awakening, spiritual practices, meditations, yoga, mindfulness, all that uses the body when you own it. That means you own yourself too, okay? And if you don't, and you have non-bilateral, that's why people have experiences. So I'm just here to say, anyone who wants to experience that, which I know is amazing, you want to tend to your mental health well-being, become an integrated brain. And it's a process, and it has no shortcuts. Anyone wanting to sell it to you, I've seen them in my courses asking for it. And if you want a shortcut, you don't really care about your well-being, which means, why are you still here? Because I care about your actual well-being. I'm not trending topic lady. I actively don't do trends, and statistics and studies are used by researchers so that they can conduct good hypotheses, like the lovely book Determined, which I haven't read yet. I'm pseudoscience woo-woo lady because I don't want to build books like that. My books are going to be completely different when they begin to roll out, and right now I'm sharing with people who want to experience that which I've been experiencing in an amazing way, and that which I now understand more and more and more, 4D, 3D, and not fun to be with. They have no idea what they're missing out on. First of all, themselves. And that's unfortunate, because their self is the most amazing gift that they actively would have to give to themselves, because the paused one, really, the dark sides of neuroplasticity and your threat response are completely unimpressive. Pinocchio on that island. Kundalini awakening, spiritual practices, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, and all that uses breath and body is maximized and experienced well thanks to an integrated brain. All child parts asleep and uncharged, and when anything that comes up from your body, such as sensations, images, affects, meanings, and behaviors, they are owned by you in your prefrontal cortex, since your body is anchored in its state of safety and using ventral. I know all about it because I don't have out-of-body experiences when I'm downloading since the beginning of my clairs. I have not had any out-of-body experiences in the way that I've seen 4D do, because I'm grounded in a body that has securely, internally attached human being child parts, and they're not charged. As I know how to deal with my nervous system because my mom taught me. I have a twin again. I know how to own Maria. And that's why I have integrity. And that's why I can spot a facade from a mile away, but I don't bother with it. I started as a teenager, like, why would I use time to figure your lies out? They're going to come out anyways. And FYI, we're all a nervous system. So the minute that you're unsafe, I'm not going to be responding to it. And you're going to be the one who's going to give me every single one of whatever it is your attitudes are. as you try to play something that you're not aware of, which is why Robert Sapolsky, as he points out, no free will. That I'll know you don't know about, because I'll notice, like my facade friend, the blank stare, as I'm trying to have what is a real conversation, and my facade friend is why I thank him so much, because I don't do any of that with anyone. I will know if you're the real deal, because that's the minute that I'm going to be having a real deal conversation with a human being, and you won't switch it up. But it's the depth of what you're going to bring in the moment. I think that's consistent versus the ones on, off, open, close. So the reason why we are, again, maximizing these experiences when they happen, and if you're resonating, awesome, come and join us, because really 5D Mystics, I look forward to connecting to you all, because I've been on this journey since 2007, and I'm like, okay, by 2008, I was like, some shit's going down. 2009, 2000, then I'm like, okay, now they're sounding repetitive. Then they started picking on the maskins. Then they started doing a lot of more shit, and now I'm just like, wow, they're all over the place, you know, and I'm not complaining, because thanks to all these people, we have great information to share and talk and have a good time. But I was like, why are they not moving into their bliss? And now I know why. They don't take their health, and that's their mental, emotional, and physical, in importance. They'd rather be a part of a group and their narratives. So the reason why, again, we are able to be consistently expanding during these moments is because we love our own true self, and we get to bring forth our body's state of safety. So it's welcomed by the mind, brain, body, heart, okay, and self of you. And whether you got earned secure attachment or you didn't lose it, that's where we're at, okay? So people, if there's anybody who's having any type of experiences and it's uncomfortable, the therapists are who you want, so you can gain the ownership of the body, mind, heart, and self, and you'll continue expanding with your clears. But you'll be able to be doing it in the absence of what, as Patrick McNamara points out, when the fear receptor is going wonky with nightmare after nightmare, that doesn't improve. Now, while I know that all the ones who don't care about presenting Patrick McNamara say, no, we're going to be the ones who, there's a shaman who went on screen saying, don't go to therapy, I can save you 10 years. It's not the nice thing to do. You're not a therapist, and you don't heal people's maladaptive behaviors, and you don't help them to own their embodied self and their brain and stuff. So this is not nice, that you get to not experience your full life because somebody is discouraging you from doing something that is instead in your best interests, FYI. And they don't lack the education per se. They actively think. That's spiritual ego. It's a spiritual bypasser. It's a person who's a teenager. The only way that a person would remotely disrespect an entire group of subject matter experts and professional field like that is a human being who has a blind ego, and that's only Cusco, who's a teenager who thinks they know everything. And that's the masculines and disempowered feminines, which is why they're always unimpressive, like those high schoolers in school. I'm amazed that I grew up and they didn't. I thought people would grow up. I get told that I overestimate the usage of your brain. I find that insulting personally. If I wanted to call myself smart, I would want bilateral integration at this point. Otherwise, I would be able to at least say, you know what, I'm a non-bilaterally by choice integrated person who wants to only use my left mode because I don't want to access my right mode. I choose the threat response. I choose to stay in my maladaptive, adaptive child behavior. Now I got a person who's taking ownership. The thing is, they're going to present to you all the ways to try and make what you're speaking falsifiable. But with the 5D mystic here in the Enlightenment Soul Age group, functional adult, I'm already grounded in reality, which is why I'm not trying to prove anything. I know the information I'm sharing, where I get it from, you know, this is what I think. So whenever anyone in the past, again, as a teenager, I grew up, I don't waste my time with people who need to play like that, but I'm just saying, it makes me humored when people don't notice what they're doing. But anyways, that's for another note. That's the lack of self-awareness, accountability, regulation that any, like my facade friend, blind person will have. They're actively, with the teenage fight response, leading the way. So they're not doing biological rudeness. They can't hear me. They actively can't hear me. And Terry Real explains it. They're not even in the interaction with me for wanting to interact with me. They're a self-fulfilling prophecy walking around with a 0 to 8-year-old. So all I'm dealing with is a person whose subconscious is ruling them. Doesn't matter how the 40 wants to talk about it. I actively have nothing to say except for as I walk now, whenever I'm dealing with anyone and their unhealthy boundaries begin to make their way, I see little kids scooting away from me. And that's pretty much it. The 5D collective, we own the mind, brain, body, heart, self with an open heart, mind. And we feel deeply, observe, witness, narrate, and process with our prefrontal cortex in a physiological state of compassion. That's why, again, the good experiences. In this grounded body state of safety, everything that comes up when you are on a spiritual awakening journey, including the kundalini awakening, isn't destabilizing or scary. With mindset, mindfulness, and mindsight, you are self-aware, accountable, and regulating and ventral, and so you have the capacity to expand consciousness and intelligence in those moments. You don't get scared as decentralization of the self is taking place through these spiritual experiences and what are known as bottom-up experiences by somatic experiencing practitioners that involve sensations, images, affects, meanings, and behaviors, one of which Peter Levine. As he shares in one of my courses, this one is with, what's her name? This was with attachment styles, not categories. I forgot her name right now, but trauma and relationships and supporting personal development always involves all these different things. Styles are not as interesting to me because the categories are best, and I learned those from Dr. Daniel Siegel, but also same time, there's a bunch of coaches that don't even talk to you about getting securely attached. And people who are like, here's my style, I'm going to stay this way. Okay. But it was good, and it is good to know about it and to have it had been done with Peter Levine, because that helps to close those loops in a good way. So it is a good course. I love the person who's doing what they're doing, Kristen Przeski, maybe. I forget her last name. But it's a good keep of therapists who work focused on relationships, but it's with style. So anyways, side note, what I was trying to say, Peter Levine shares a story where he is healing an old lady with somatic experiencing. It's trademarked, so they use it because somatics is the subject matter, if I remember correctly. Somatic experiencing is a series of something like that. So long story short, he has the lady is getting better, but she comes back and tells him basically, because she had a dream and something along the lines of, you're the devil because only God heals. And so she drops all the sessions. So Peter Levine knows very well about things that those of us who are mystics experience. The 4D don't like hearing this because they say, so they're going to be disproving spirituality stories. No, they're not only... One, this is that part of where the only reason a person is not able to allow two things to sit together is because they're not using two sides of the brain. You don't have to. That's how I'm going to bring it to you. I know that you can't disprove God to me, but I also know that I won't make you believe, which is why I don't make you believe in my being a mystic or anything that I will experience, and I don't care to. The only ones who want to prove that they are truly mystics are the same ones who don't know what blind faith is to begin with, and they don't have an active, consistently open channel to that, which is, again, an intelligence, source, love. It is ours. It's not of all. We have scientists, people who are processes who respect us, and we respect them. So we respect two sides of a coin. It's two groups of subject matter experts, if you ask me, and there are a bunch of them. That's it, and we bring it all here. Anima mundi, shared consciousness. I'll accept all, you reject none. It's not confusing if you have bilateral, vertical, and overall integration in a whole self. It's only confusing to the human beings who have not tapped into their infinite higher human conscious potential on purpose. The ones who didn't regard their own inner well-being and go to therapists to get better so that they could stop fucking drinking, drugging, and treating people like shit. That's as simple as can be. I've been learning from these people for the past 3 years. They've been around for like 20. So the reality is it's free will choice, because anybody who's living life and waking up in the morning, you know what I know? When you wake up and treat me a certain way, you chose that, as you did to go back to sleep and allow it to be. Therefore, that I can understand it, explain it, it's called biological rudeness. Yep, I understand it. I don't need to give you a green pass or a red pass, which is exactly where it stands with any empowered feminine or masculine. So you don't have to be healthy. No, you can continue doing what you do. But again, the point is we also didn't have all this information, and that's where sharing it helps me to support you. And really, I'm having an amazing journey. I always have been with this mysticism stuff. Doesn't mean, again, that I'm going to be threatened if she's a fako. Wow, you came up with a new way to insult people that you don't agree with. I mean, really, that's the only thing I think of when somebody has to come up with some bullshit statement. while I am stupid about some things, when it comes to spiritual stuff and mysticism, you can't tell me I'm a faker. Like, you can't say, we're going to go. Well, you can. You can say everything you want, but going to try and prove spirituality makes me laugh. Because then we got scientists who want to disprove reality. So, I mean, a brain that's grounded in reality just laughs at all these people who are non-bilaterally integrated. So, bilaterally integrated mystics and people, again, we don't lose inner self-security. We don't get confused during spiritual experiences. And it's thanks to navigating a flow state with the prefrontal cortex engaged, as we are anchored in ventral. So, some of us got lucky. Others get here because they choose their health. There's a deep knowing of the flow state, an experience of selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness in a way that the body mind, empowered feminine masculine, doesn't contract or fear what is happening. I'll never forget when I had one of these moments, because I got it explained not only by and I shared this on our channeled guidance episode today, the new one. It's only on Spotify and audio podcast, not on YouTube. So it's in like 1, 2, 3. That was done, and I was out of this 40 bandwidth, and then I came across Esoteric Lady, and then I came across Patrick McNamara, and then I came across a smart neuroscientist who informed how the flow state is not supernatural. We can all achieve it, but obviously here's where, once you own your whole self, so your solo self, core, narrative, relational, you have an integrated brain. So you need to get all the way integrated. There's no shortcuts. I've seen people want them. There are none. So if you need, again, a shortcut, you don't want to be here, because anybody who's a shortcut person is a lazy person who doesn't understand what I just spent half an hour trying to share with you. And I am not lazy when it comes to incorporating information. Discerning is automatic. If you're smart, you go look it up. And also curious people ask questions. They don't present to you anything that is, let me challenge you. Those who challenge are, again, teenagers. I know all about the facades, and anytime they're trying to challenge, I'm like, you're not having a good time, are you? I am, but I guess you're not. So selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness is the one moment where your body feels a little wonky, because it's like, hey, where's myself? Hey, where did time go? And that's when I was expanding light body, rainbow, all these times of my panic attacks. But I can also bring in the freeze response if I wanted to. But long story short, though, as there were moments of richness due to our ascension energies involving themes. So I knew exactly, and I still do, what theme we're on, and so forth and so on. And I was like, I didn't feel lost. Myself is right here. She's here. I'm here. My name's Maria. I didn't lose time. I didn't lose track. I know what time it is. And so that's why these words make me feel like, this is odd. I didn't do any of that. But now I know why, because an integrated brain and an embodied in my secure attachment ventral vagal. Okay? And that's the part of where my richness is always fun. The part of panic attack, those were the most uncomfortable parts of everything. If you ask me what would I want to eliminate, that. But then again, now that I know what it helps, like, nope, can't eliminate that one. Need to use it, because I can explain to you how easy it is to work with my prefrontal while I'm having one and not actually be clinically dissociated anyway. Doesn't mean I like it. Nope, not at all. But I won't be like, yeah, not so lady, so you're telling me I have to put up with it? No. But again, I know my body is grounded in a securely attached inner world. Okay, so let me again explain. I understand my strength is that I have emotional maturity and depth, and I'm okay with that, because I'm not afraid of being vulnerable and a scaredy cat. And I don't take things personally, because if you're stupid or scaredy cat, like a kid, when they tell you this shit, you learn how to be like, yeah, you know what? It's only words that you're using. Can't break a child who doesn't know what shame means, because she got taught how to respect herself and others while they're being disrespectful, and that they're the ones who lack integrity. And God confirmed it. That's a straightforward equation. You ask Maria where she comes from, I got it. And then we got Robert Sapolsky with determined. So I guess no free will. Oh, look, I got lucky. Hey, yay. I actually do. I love to love. And my baby, I love to love. And she loves and they love. So anyways, we're going to have love on the menu in a little bit. Meantime, the rigidity and chaos that take place for non-bilaterally integrated mystics and people doesn't have anything to do with how 5D body type is what I call will experience what we get to experience, luckily. So they don't have an inner secure attached self. They do not have integration of brain, and they do not tend to go and get their child parts uncharged. So we instead have our ownership of all this stuff. Our child parts are uncharged. We do have integration of brain. We do have an inner secure attached self, and so we have ownership of the sense of self. Our body, mind, and heart are ours. And so you cannot break wholeness, which is what we are feeling. Okay, so you feel whole to be yourself. And that's why in life you are an inner child adult who has a child-centric view with innocence, open-hearted spontaneity. Some of you came with a child-centric environment. Others instead go and or went to a good therapist to heal the suffering so that they could live and can live a wholeness life. Okay, so people who want to live wholeness, they will know that they can. And every human being is going to be smart when they go and do that, because that's actually what your body and body brain is doing in the first place. Like Jesus told whoever it was, the kingdom of God is within your body. And that's where that quote from Sadhguru, it was on Christmas Day. Let me see if I can find it, because here's where yoga, yes, it can help you, but only if you own that self, meaning that when you have a person spreading a rumor about yoga being awful, is because she didn't go to therapy. She doesn't know about Peter Levine. She probably doesn't believe in Peter Levine, like others who don't believe in any of that which is sciences. The people who reject sciences, and then there's the ones who just use words, and they actually use you trauma dump, you this, you that. Those people are just as not securely attached as you're not pully enough. So anybody who is acting like that is a human being. I consider it a teenager. It's the only time I thought it was normal for us to do this stuff, because grown-ups told us about peer pressure. Then I grew up and I'm like, wow, does anybody not have a flag post? And now I know it's all about you being able to be a person who has self-confidence for real and not pretend. And that means you own your child parts. And that is where my facade friend, as I use him as the example, the kingdom of God is within you. Yoga is a method to experience the within. Yeah. And so again, great. But when you own and contain and you can handle thoughts and emotions, we have a Zen master who doesn't know how to do his laundry. So he's also a person who could use a therapist and could wait until he has wholeness so that he can have meaning of his solo self in the absence of other. And that means you know how to self-regulate internally securely. Okay, so there's an entire group of good therapists out there sharing the good news about heaven in the body and getting out of the hell, about getting self-compassionate and then compassion with others, and that in a physiological state. Okay, the ones who don't want it, they're listening to other voices, and they don't have to want to have a good experience with their embodied brain, with themselves. They don't have to want to have a good experience with Kundalini awakening yoga. What I'm trying to share is that the spiritual process is amazing, but not if you're going to go through it like that. And while there are many paths to enlightenment, suffering and pain does not have to be, or suffering and loss does not have to be experienced with a body that actively is already in a state of suffering and loss, and that can experience enlightening in a better way with a whole self and wholeness, and just you being able to handle emotions, thoughts, and be yourself while you're going through something that is going to be special if you are of spiritual. If you're not, then you obviously aren't going to be caring about Kundalini awakening. You just care about the mindfulness stuff. But when your body mind is yours and you're consistently in a healthy, self-regulating, self-soothing embodiment, so you're using prefrontal, you're safe to be you, your ventral vagal is engaged, you're living a restorative embodiment, that's when you're going to be owning this sense of self that I talked to you about, fully integrated. And so spiritual activities and practices always have an outcome that you'll enjoy, and that's consistently over time. The people who are thinking that it's okay to use these practices before people are integrated, I have a different opinion, because I've seen them. They don't get better. They only flip a switch, like the lady with yoga, who now craps on people who do yoga. There's a famous actress who did the same. She's like, all those people in spirituality are desperate. She flipped a switch. So the temporal junction is what they're using. They ruminate. They relate to the event with the past. They don't own their sense of self. They don't know that their sensations, images, affects, meanings, and behaviors involve their first 3 years of life, which are implicit memory. Then there's explicit. And that their 0-8-year-old is all of the karma that they will not have potentially processed if, as a teenager, that adolescent, when you decided what you were going to do, did you choose love and kindness and honesty? Meaning, I will say the truth. I will say with integrity. Doesn't mean you're perfect. Did you choose to do what is the right thing is the law? and physically keeping people safe. The next thing is respecting people mentally and emotionally. How many did choose this? I chose it. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. I knew very well aware. Doesn't mean people believe in my intent being kind or good. Nope. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to be doing something you think is right or wrong. No, I own this though. I'll be able to stand up because I don't physically touch you and I'm not trying to emotionally affect you. And if you say you did, I will say, I'm sorry, like my mother taught me, but you better bet that I will know my intent and I will not be playing a game. So the people who continue to grow up with betrayal, men, women, that's what facades are. And I see them all over YouTube. So they get to have what is not going to be an experience of the lifetime. They're going to have their 0 to 8-year-old and continue to live out a bunch of shit that is unfortunate. And that biochemistry is in fear, modulated, and dysregulated embodiment is not something that's in your good stress. It's in your bad stress. And pain, suffering, negative, decentralization of the self experiences is what happens, which is why when you see leaders, quote unquote, switching, which also has happened within our community, of those of you who are mystics, I know why. Because Patrick McNamara explains in one of his interviews, I haven't read the book on the religious self and decentralization, but I know the gist of it because I've seen 3, 4, or 5 of his interviews. And so also because, again, I know what the experience is like without losing anything. So he explains if you're having a good experience, you're going to expand. If you have a bad experience, you're going to flip and go rigid and go to the other side, which is in fact what happened to this one woman who made all of this great stuff for our community. And from one day to the next, no, it was over time. And some of the 4D collective pointed a finger at the man she was with. There's a negative energy attached to her. That's the entity. They found somebody to blame because that's where if you got a insecurely attached human being who's non-bilaterally integrated, they're always blame, fault, revenge, and all of that, which is a shame cycle because they don't own 2 sides of brain and their inner world to be able to have an inner securely attached self that says it's a lot of potentials, not just one. When you make assumptions based on your past, that's why your 3-year-old leads you, which is why Patrick Tiahan talks to you about your past is living through you, and any smart therapist again. So people who disregard that, they disregard everything about who they could be, and so they're not really interested in becoming that which is the spirituality process. They're just spiritual egos who think that awakening means I have clairs, which is why they think to tell you about boundaries and how they're the reason why you can access ancient coding or some shit like that. And it's not about the coding being shit, it's that they don't have all of that power. And they don't have any power, really. The distorted feminines is where they completely have forgotten their place because of so many different ways that the lack of self-aware, accountable, regulating human being who is a non-bilaterally brain will go and follow their leader and their books and basically just use their mouths. And you'll always notice because they are not all inclusive, because they actually think and actively say, I can know by my own assumptions everything. And so they're arrogant and they don't know how to say, no, I don't know everything, because their brain doesn't want to, because that hurts. Their own self is afraid of the unknown because maximum uncertainty scares the shit out of anybody who doesn't own their self. That's the reason why they don't become their full-fledged spiritual process. It's a person who knows what it is. So again, it's not a competition, but if they don't own their body and their mind and their brain and their heart and their self, and they're not their adult self and their higher self, they're going to be spiritual bypassers and egos, and that's what you're going to notice. And again, the groups are going to find people like me, and that's where we don't really care, because they're the ones who are not loving, not all-inclusive, and at this point ignorant. And again, they lack the desire to learn about what is science is, and that it's sharing how you can get to your health, the mental, emotional, and physical health. So the reality is you don't care about becoming a better version of yourself and noticing your lack of self-awareness, accountability, regulation in a state of physiological compassion, yet you want to tell me you're spiritual. or mindful, like the Zen master who wants to carry a title and go around saying nobody can be enlightenment while not noticing that it's him who doesn't know enlightenment due to the fact that he's still using a temporal junction and can't process the emotion of sadness with the depths of his ventral vagal, as he allows himself to say, it's okay, 1-year-old, 3-year-old. Our human secondary consciousness is actively being used right now. None of us like the unknown. This is how straightforward it is, which is also why the fancy lady thinks this has no emotions. Because again, she doesn't know how to even do it. Instead, this is full of depth. In fact, it's actually immense. So people will know how amazing it is to be immense once you have ownership of you. Let me read you Sadhguru, and then we'll move on with our topics. If you think you are big, you become small. Those are all the half-brainers, is what I call them. If you know you are nothing, nothingness is what we all are, you are immense. Why? Because it doesn't matter what I come and tell you out of my mouth. Your ego's ruling you. By the minute you're done with this, it doesn't matter what and how I will have wielded. I know this, but I'm not here to try and wield you in any way. I'm actually just sharing information to empower you with it. And then I don't even care if it's called pseudoscience, bullshit, self-help crap, because it's not bullshit, it's not crap. And it is pseudoscience, and it is self-help. And a mystic, you can't prove it, can you? So the reality is, again, I'm definitely grounded in reality, and at the same time, I'm a person of faith. You can't make me not have faith, and I'm not asking you to have faith either. I'm actually very well aware that you don't impose faith upon any human being, because that's not something you can do. Like, you can't make me not believe in magic and miracles and angels and everything that those of us who are part of the spiritual process and collective know. But we don't have to prove it, because that's the petty thing of the people who don't believe without seeing. And what I mean is that if you need to prove it, it means you want others to see it. You haven't understood one thing yet about what it is to have blind faith. Blind faith. And it's a feeling, not the stories. The stories are for our ancestors who brought us together in different ways. That is the beauty of being human, being immense. Only if you access your humanity. And so bilaterally, vertically, and overall integrated people, it is a beautiful journey to be yourself mindfully, spiritually, and have a whole self-love flow. And to use good stress in life and relationships. And for me, to bring to you 5D Christ consciousness as a mystic, as an enlightenment soul aged person, functional child adult who does I love to love, and my baby, he loves to dance and he loves to laugh and learn and not cast stones and to be in his ventral vagal state. Healthy self-regulation. So again, let's remember, I don't have all the answers to anything. I fuck up data and I confuse it, but I care about you being yourself. Always have, always will, and that's because I love to love, and that's because why not? You're beautiful. You're beautiful. I'm an empowered feminine. I will nurture. In the absence of imposing on any masculine or distorted feminine their well-being. In fact, I will raise my hands, and as my mother pointed out, and as God pointed out, go mind my own business once I've shared the information. And if you don't like me, you can throw stones. No, please don't throw stones. But my point is, that's okay. You don't physically touch a person at all, otherwise we call the cops on you. And then as for mental, emotional, again. So empowered people, we care to share information together, and then we find humorous the ones who basically, we're going to go prove spirituality, we're going to prove all science, keep proving. We're going to have fun reading your material. Come on, bring it over. So smart experts are all over the place, and then there's other smart experts, and they're all over the place. We're a collective, and no, there's nobody that's going to lose. Meaning that everything's good. We're going to win. Love wins. Humanity wins. Don't you know, it always ends with winning, and it's called human love narrative. No suffering needed. The ones who want to carry that weight, again, the fancy lady and man in suit, they're doing a great job at carrying that weight. And the 7 to 14 charming who are bringing the ones who don't want to be around the positive people. We leave them alone. They call us toxic positive. And that's why. We'll see you again in a little while, maybe not. I don't know yet. We'll find out. But in the meantime, thanks for stopping by. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. And again, for paid subscription-based model, video, practical exercises, content, you sign up to Spotify and or one of those other podcast platforms, and or fan base. They both have a similar model. The difference is for fan base, it will always be video, while for the Spotify and other podcast platforms, it's on Spotify that you get video. But on the other ones, it's going to only be audio, just so you know. So you choose, you get to pick, and it's only going to start rolling out once I see a certain number of subscribers. Obviously, when YouTube is going to be available to tiers, that's where I will do my best to hone in on and create a couple of different types of content. But in the meantime, we use what we have. And so again, one-to-one mentorship, you email, sign up for the masterclass in the future, and for our spiritual workshops and retreats if you want priority. If you don't care about priority, then you don't have to sign up. And thanks again for stopping by.